What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the ShockerRacing garage. My name is James and I'm back here in the garage with the Mojito Jeep Wrangler 392 with today's latest project. Now, I have been driving around for the last few months with some fender liners that I basically took the stock ones, chopped them up and made them work here in the front fender well, just to have something in there until I was able to figure out the proper solution for what I need here. So for those of you that don't know, we added the metal cloak overline fender flares when we did the whole Mojito paint job on this thing, and had not figured out what we were gonna do about the liners with the 40-inch tires, because I need all the room we can in these wheel wells to be able to fully flex these 40s without rubbing. Now, the big problem that a lot of 392 owners have been running into is that on the driver's side of the 392 Wranglers, Jeep went and put this massive windshield washer reservoir kind of right in the way in order to be able to use some of the high clearance fender liners that have already been available for the Wrangler JL. So a lot of manufacturers have had to go back to the drawing board and redesign their fender liners to make versions that will work with the 392. So that's a great solution for people that aren't going with 40s or even 38s, 39s, any of the larger size tires. Those liners are probably gonna work for you just fine to give you that look and kind of the clearance that you need. But for those of us that are running larger tires, we needed another solution so that we can run some of the more high clearance fender liners. And so basically there are now two companies that have come out with windshield washer reservoir relocation kits, and I happen to have both of them in hand, and I'm gonna compare both and show you which one I decide to choose, and I may give away the other option. Just because I've got it, might as well give it away. So stay tuned, we're gonna show you which one I like and which one I end up going with and why, and then figure out how you guys can win the other one. So basically we have two options of companies making these windshield washer reservoir relocation kits. The first one that I picked up was from SDHQ. I grabbed this one right off the bat because at the time they were the only one that had one available. So I jumped on this and then I didn't get around to installing it yet. And that's when the crew over at MotoBilt, which is a much larger box here, but the guys over at MotoBilt came out with their relocation kit, and so they were both similarly priced. I did get the MotoBilt one on special when they had one of their sales going on, so I did get a little bit off on it, but it ended up making them both, I believe, right around $160 shipped to me. So they're pretty much comparing price-wise to price-wise. But let's jump into it. Let me open them up and we'll show you what the differences are. So I'm going to start with the SDHQ one because I have already opened this up because, like I said, I've had it for a couple of months. But basically what this is it's going to come with a kind of almost factory looking washer reservoir, but this one is just going to be a half-gallon tank. You can see it's a pretty small size tank. And then you're gonna take off some of the parts from your factory washer reservoir and relocate them over to here and get this thing mounted up. And I'll go through some of the steps with that just so we can kind of compare the installation processes. But it comes with some mounting hardware, some different brackets, as well as some zip ties and the various bolts and nuts needed to mount this thing up. So that's pretty much it. That's all that comes in this box. Pretty simple. But let's get into the MotoBilt one. I have not opened that one yet, so I do not even know what to expect inside this big giant box here. This is definitely some serious packaging. Okay, so first thing I believe is going to be the washer reservoir here. Definitely well packaged. Okay, so as you can see, this is an all aluminum custom built windshield washer reservoir, and this reservoir from MotoBilt is designed to hold 1 gallon of windshield washer fluid. So that's one big thing that I took a liking to with this one right off the bat when I saw it came out, because Kim likes to drink her windshield washer fluid. I swear, sometimes she's either drinking it or trying to wash the entire Jeep with it. So having a gallon versus a half gallon was one thing right off the bat that caught my eye on that one, as well as obviously the aluminum versus plastic. Obviously plastic is a little more factory look, but the aluminum does look cool. So let's see what else is in the box. All right, so we do have a packing label here, packing slip saying thank you from MotoBilt. We appreciate your business. And always got some stickers in there. Those are actually my first MotoBilt stickers. And it looks like in here there's also the instruction scan thing to get to the instructions. Speaking of the MotoBilt instructions, I want to point this out right away before other people make the mistake I did. In the instructions, the diagram for cutting the washer reservoir neck shows where to make some cuts. Do not cut at the lines in the diagram. Look at the photo, the actual photo that MotoBilt shows, and you'll see that the cuts are different. If you cut where the diagram shows, the tube that MotoBilt provides will be way too short, and you'll either be making a Home Depot run or ordering a new filler neck to cut. We've got a clear tube. It's probably gonna be for the washer fluid to flow into the tank, as well as some clamps and some hardware here. We need to get this stock factory reservoir out of the way. Of course, ours is full right now, so hopefully we don't make a mess. But we're gonna jump right into getting that removed and getting it out of the way, and we can kind of hold up the two different options up into the wheel well so we can see how they fit and where they're gonna sit and all that good stuff. All right, so the first thing they have us do, we got Send It Greg here is helping me out today. You're gonna use a 10 millimeter to loosen this bolt holding the filler neck to the kind of the fender here. And super simple, just unscrew the 10 millimeter. Then we're gonna jump down into here, and there's a 10 millimeter holding the rest of the neck in there. So once that bolt is removed, you can just kind of pull it up and out of the rubber filler neck there. So next we need to disconnect these lines like from the tank here, and you're gonna disconnect the sensor. This red tab you're gonna pull out towards you and then squeeze and pull. So that one's disconnected. We've got these lines already kind of pulled out. All right, so there's a third nut down in here holding it to the fender. And that's also a 10 millimeter. Okay, so there is a fourth bolt back towards the engine side here up against the firewall. So I used a couple extensions to get in there, kind of past the washer reservoir. So now with the fourth one out, we're finally loose. Okay, so once you have the reservoir loose, when you go to pull this pump off, it needs to come out. It's gonna dump all your fluid out the bottom. So I guess me worrying about covering it at the top, either way, it's all gotta come out. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this pump, and basically it's just kind of clipped in here, and then kind of pull it out and up at the same time. Ooh. We have basically decided that we're gonna go with the MotoBilt one, but I just wanted to show you what's going on with the SDHQ one so you have an idea of what it is that you're working with and kind of why we decided to go with the other. So basically the SDHQ one, this bracket here is gonna bolt up to the reservoir, and then this bracket here is gonna bolt to the other side of the reservoir. And that's gonna allow you to mount this up in here. Basically, I believe it's gonna go on this one. You're gonna put a nut on there. And then on the other side, this bracket's gonna bolt up here to the fender, okay? Now, I believe, because it doesn't seem to mention it in the instructions, when they're talking about that you need to do some cutting to level things, these two, I think are gonna have to get cut off in order to allow this reservoir to sit flush in here, because they're kind of in the way. And you may even need to trim some of this heat shielding here. Otherwise, maybe you may be able to just tighten this down nice and tight. But basically what we decided is I'd rather have the 1 gallon tank over the half gallon tank, and I don't want to have to cut any of this stuff here. whereas the MotoBilt one is designed to just kind of bolt up and gives me the larger reservoir. So I'm gonna go with the MotoBilt, and we'll get that one installed now. Okay, so we need to remove the low fluid sensor here from the washer reservoir to move it over to the new one. It doesn't really give us any instructions or tips on how to do this, so I'm just gonna try to pry up carefully and hope not to break this sensor. There's also a seal, but I think this has to come out before the seal does. Yeah, it seems like if I work it slowly, it's gonna come right up. There we go. That wasn't so bad. So that just popped out. And then you do need to get this seal out of here. All right. And I believe we are also going to need this rubber grommet from the top to move over to the MotoBilt one. So that just pulled out like that. Okay, so we need to remove the filler neck because we do have to cut this. So we ended up using one of these clip removal tools to be able to pry this clip out of the tube. And now that we've got this loose, we have to basically cut this middle section out of here and get this ready to go into the MotoBilt reservoir. Okay, so from the top, you want to cut basically right here on the top side of this line. And then we're gonna just use a Sawzall. I don't know if this is the best tool or not for it, but make sure you wear safety glasses and always be safe. Okay, so we're working on moving everything over. I've already put the grommet here for the filler neck. We do need to work on the front here now, adding the pump and the low fluid sensor and stuff like that. We have already started putting the filler neck together, but I don't want to connect all of this until we get this kind of more in the vehicle so that we can see how this, see how MotoBilt has this cut kind of at an angle. So we want to see if it's lined up right and make sure we've got this, you know, set in there properly. So we'll do that later. All right, so we're gonna add this little grommet in to this front hole here. That goes in nice and easy. And then the sensor, looks like they've got it kind of showing facing kind of with this flat edge towards the top. So hopefully this goes in okay. Work it little by little. Okay, so we left the pump attached in the vehicle. What we did is we kind of pre-assembled this clamp here already through these slots so that it's in a position where we'll be able to get a screwdriver to it. So we can just kind of slide the pump in here and lock it into place when we get this in position. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this into place, and then we'll get the pump attached. I should show you right here, there's a mounting pin there. So we're gonna wanna start it on that and slide these over this pin here. And then there's one in the back there that's kind of hard to see. I'm gonna take the provided nuts and washers, and I'm gonna start this top one here because it's the easiest to reach. These are just 10 millimeters as well. I'll get this bottom one started. Try to reach around to the back one here. All right, so then we just gotta tighten these up. 10 millimeter. Bottom one's gonna be a little tighter. We ended up taking the hose clamp back off in order to get the pump into place, and then added the clamp back on after everything was situated. Okay, so make sure when you get the clamp done on the pump that it's not in the way of how you're gonna have to plug in the gray clip here for the low fluid sensor. We had it tightened down, but we couldn't clip the sensor, and so we had to rotate the clamp up a bit to give us clearance, and then we were able to plug that in. So now we just got to tighten the clamp back down. So this third nut in the back here is kind of behind the reservoir, so it's hard to get to, but a ratcheting 10 millimeter seems to do the trick. And there's room behind the engine for it to ratchet okay. Okay, so here's a warning. We followed this diagram from MotoBuilt's website where it shows you down here to cut at this line. And then you end up with this bottom lower neck filler piece. And do not follow this, because we followed it and we ended up with this piece here. But what we noticed when we got down to the bottom of their instructions, and you can see right here it shows it just like that. What we noticed when we got down to their diagram, look at how there's two ridges there still. So because of that, we cut this off too short, and this whole thing did not reach down into the reservoir. So what we had to do was we took and we modified the excess piece that we cut off in between. So we essentially modified this section to fit. And you can see Greg here is holding it, and we made it long enough to fit. But if you cut this the way that they show in the diagram, you're gonna have a problem and it's not gonna reach. So do not do that. Greg is dropping it down from the top there, and we're sliding right down into the reservoir, putting the factory bolt back in to hold it into place. And we might just need to swivel these a little bit so it gets the right angle going in here, and we should be good to go. All right, so that's gonna wrap things up for this MotoBilt windshield washer reservoir install. Overall, it's pretty straightforward. If you can mount the pump with it out of the vehicle, it's probably gonna be easier. We didn't wanna disconnect it, and so we tried to do it in the vehicle. It's a little more challenging than it probably should have been if we had just taken it out. And also make sure that you pay attention when you're cutting that tube, this tube here, so that you don't cut the way their diagram shows. Go by their actual photos so that you don't cut it too short. This did end up working out just fine for me, but it would have been nice to have the way that they wanted it done. So the last thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is just get some zip ties and kind of clean up these wires here, because there's no longer mounts for those to mount to. And I have decided I am gonna go ahead and do a giveaway for the SDHQ windshield washer reservoir. I've got it around here somewhere, but I am gonna go ahead and give that one away since I already have it and I don't need it anymore. So go ahead and drop a comment below saying that you wanna enter, and make sure you're subscribed. So I'm gonna make sure that you are subscribing to the channel. Drop a comment below saying that you want to enter for the giveaway for the SDHQ windshield washer reservoir. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a random winner on Friday the 13th of January. That's right, January 13th is a Friday, and it's supposed to be an unlucky day, but we'll make it somebody's lucky day. And thanks for watching. Make sure you drop some comments below if you guys have any questions about either one of them. I can try to help walk you through it. And we'll see you in the next video.